Donny Cage, not Danny Cage. My friend. Welcome to the program, Evolving with Cory Kastle. Or, as I'm calling it now, Evolving, and I'm Cory Kastle. How are you feeling this evening?
I'm great. I love the intro. I'm just jealous that I don't have a pair of bongos myself now.
Well, you listen. Let's put down with that emotion that is jealousy, because I definitely tell you it's not an exclusive thing. You don't have to have a membership card to get one of these djembe drums, but the drum itself for me, I'll explain it to you because I don't know if we've ever talked about it before. The I bring it to the ring with me for every match, and I start every podcast I do with it because it represents consistency to me. It represents staying true to myself and like the almost like when I bring it to the ring with me, I go like this is like a ceremony for me. This is like a wrestling is like the closest thing to church that I have in my adult life. And so I treat the ring like it's sacred and I treat the drum like it's sacred. So it's a ceremonial sacred thing and it represents my heart and how consistently it beats. And and I can stay goofy with it and I don't have to be like all the way like trained all the way at how to beat it. So please, if you believe that message speaks to you, get yourself some sort of drum and beat it to your emotions, beat it to your feelings, beat it to how you do. Like you probably have like when you're chopping away at the tree that is the entertainment business. That's exactly what that represents for me. Like just kind of staying consistent.
Right, I love it.
But I think it was. Do you know the comedian Pete Holmes?
Pete Holmes. I've heard the name, but I couldn't tell you that I remember any of his
Have a
stand-up
show
routines.
on HBO called Crashing, and he had a late night talk show that would come on after Conan O'Brien.
Got it.
So he said he was having a conversation with Conan O'Brien about how he was going to start the show, talking about the kind of pressures that are on it. If your name's like on the marquee and like a bunch of different talks, but the part that stood out the most to me was when he was like, Conan was talking about like a triangle. Like if you play a triangle, like bing, 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 you just stay consistent with playing your triangle, and someone will be like, "Do you hear that triangle?" And then the attention will go on to it. So like staying consistent with your thing, and that's kind of what like started bringing me towards the idea of having the representation uh, of the message of consistency, and that started like kind of bringing the drum around in my life. And
Consistency, very, very important.
I mean, if you go back to episode 1 of Evolving, I think I didn't have one yet. I don't remember how long it was before I got it in the whole drum thing. I don't know. Maybe I was a couple years into it before I got the drum, and I've upgraded my drum since then.
But that's why it's called Evolving with Cory
Yes,
Kastle,
exactly.
because it's not just the title of the show, it's you yourself evolve over time.
Yeah, indeed. And what's cool is I just figured we just had a good, fun, easy one here today because this evening I recorded an episode yesterday. And that had been like I do the like clapper boards. I do the little clapper.
I'm
See,
very familiar with those clapperboards.
the bottom line when I went to race it yesterday to write the episode date on yesterday, it had like October on it, and I was like, all right, I got to get back into the swing of things. Like I somehow found myself in, things were moving and grooving. My life itself was evolving, so I didn't have, um, I was having my own growths and my own movements and things like that. So um, I'm glad to kind of be back in the swing of things. So I figured when I did that post, and I was like, who wants to come on and hang with me? And you were one of the first people to say something, and I was like, all right, we're doing it. We're doing it. So we happen to probably know a lot of the same people, and we've rolled in a lot of the same circles. So I
Yep.
figure maybe let's unbox some of that and chat about it and have some fun and maybe some laughs and stories.
It's a lot of stories to tell. I mean, I've
Yes.
been I've been doing film and podcasting now for podcasting probably like 4 or 5 years on and off now. I mean, but film, I mean, I've been doing for like the last 20 years, which I mean, I'm aging myself, but it is what it is. I mean,
Well, we're probably around the same age, right? Uh, I've been in the wrestling business for 23 years now, I believe. So, yeah, I'm also aging myself. I'm showing how old I I had my in ring debut in 2002. So, old fart now. I'm one of the oldest guys in any pro wrestling locker room that I'm in.
2002, if memory serves me right, was the year Ring of Honor got its start
Hmm. Yeah.
in Philadelphia. For those of you who don't
Mhm.
know that,
Right. Yeah. The intention was for me to be involved with that whole thing. Uh, that's a whole other story for a whole other day, but I was closely tied to the beginning of Ring of Honor, and it didn't happen for me. But we're probably okay to not get into that story at this moment. So, where'd you get your start in acting and film?
so it's kind of a coincidence because I mean I always wanted to get into acting and film, and I had done like a little bit of theater when I was in high school, but I think I was a junior in high school when I actually acted in my first film. And it
Hmm.
was because these two producers happened to be at the Chickies and Pete's in Philly.
Hmm.
My aunt was a waitress there and was waiting on them that day. She overheard them talking about films, and she said, my nephew actually wants to get into acting. And they said, oh, we're having an audition in like a month. If he has a resume or headshot or anything, he can come on down and audition. So I went down, I auditioned for the role. They liked me, and the rest is history.
Who were those producers, and what was that film?
The first film I ever worked on went by a couple different titles, but the eventual title of the project was Star Child. And it was sort of like a mix of sci-fi and family drama with a little bit of a subplot involving drug trafficking. It was a weird mix of genres, but I had a hell of a good time working on my first film and actually seeing what the process was like. I mean, of course, I had picked up a video camera and filmed shit with like my friends when
Right.
I was
Yeah.
younger, but this was an actual like film set. Like I
Yeah.
actually saw a real director, real actors, real producers, real cinematographers. So that was super cool to
That's
get to
awesome.
see that. I
Did
was
you ever sit down and watch the movie?
I haven't in years, but I watched it back in the day plenty of times. And first time I watched it, I thought it was great. By the 10th time I watched it, I was like, wow, this will be fun to show to people someday. I'm not going to say won't be embarrassed by it, but
Yeah. Well, what about on the filmmaking aspect of things? Like when it comes to like watching back stuff to edit it to get the best cuts, the best coverage. Like how are you on that? Like do you had any experience with that sort of stuff?
a little bit. I don't like to consider myself an editor because I get tired of looking at the same footage over and over after so many hours. So my hat's off to all the editors out there who actually love sitting in a room and watching the same clips over and over. It's an art and people don't appreciate it enough.
Yeah.
But I will say this. if you are if you consider yourself a filmmaker, doesn't matter if you're a director, producer, cinematographer, whatever, learn how to edit because you never know when you could be asked to utilize that skill.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, uh, it's also valuable. It's a very valuable skill to have because, like, there are editors who charge top bucks for that stuff, and if you can get in on the ground floor and start getting to the point where you're charging, pretty good amount to do it, you won't mind staring at the same footage. You won't mind staring at the same footage all day.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're going to enter the media industry in any capacity, you need a skill. Either you have to be good at sound, lighting, editing, camera work, something, because that's how you get your foot in the door. If you're just one of those like wishy-washy people that's like, I want to work in film, but you don't know, kind of like me when I got out of college, but I didn't know what the hell specifically I was going to focus on.
Right.
15 years down the road, you'll figure it out. But the first couple of years are going to be a struggle.
Right. uh, so what do you say, like, what was the thing that inspired you most? Because I know you're still chopping away at the business aspect of things on
Yeah.
the other aspect of it. So, like, we as filmmaking people aren't like the holy crap, we're making a full-blown handsome living off of this stuff. So we're still in need of what we call in the wrestling business a shoot job. Uh, what was the point where you were like, um, I'm gonna focus some of this on that and some of that on this? Like, what was like your biggest turning point to, like, say that, like, here's a life lesson and these are the paths that I want to go down?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, first got out of college was right when the big recession hit 2008. The first like 4 or 5 years, I was just grinding away, job interview after job interview, had to work like multiple part time jobs just to save any money up. And, finally got some work doing like some office admin stuff, which I hated, but had to do it because I had bills to pay. And then it's like I finally realized, okay, I developed a little bit of a knack for project management. So that's kind of what I have done full time for the last few years. But then, as luck would have it, a buddy of mine started his own production company back in 2013. And I happened to see his ad on Facebook one day. I called him up and I said, hey, however I can get in on this, let me know because I'd really like to help you get this off the ground. So we started doing meetings, started coming up with a business plan, got a few gigs every now and then. And then now we're finally starting to gain some traction.
Well, um, have you written any film? Have you been on the script writing aspect of any of that?
A lot of what I've done, more so than being the actual screenwriter, has been sitting in on a lot of the table reads that they do when they want to, just get the script, give it to a room full of actors or producers, and they just kind of read through it from start to finish. And
Mhm.
I'm the guy who can kind of sit there, give some honest feedback, and say, I love this part, this part, this part. This has got to go, or this has got to be changed. I can look at a script and be one of those people that says I could see this playing out really well on screen. I think people are going to dig this. Or, ooh, man, you remember when we read pages 16 through 21? Those were pretty rough to get through. We need to either cut them out completely or they got to be changed in some way.
So you're pre-editing. You're pre-editing,
All
which
that.
is maybe as valuable of a skill as editing in itself.
Yeah. The
So
tough part is that most writers see themselves as artists. Like, this is my art, this is my bread and butter, this is my passion. And some writers, they're really receptive to feedback. They're like, no, 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 I want the best possible final product, so give it to me, tell me what works and what doesn't. Other people can't tell them anything. It's like, no, if you don't get my script, you suck, and I'll just take this to somebody else. And
it takes a minute doing anything before you realize that what you're doing is a collaborative thing. Like, so I think when it comes to talking to somebody who's not ready to hear that, somebody who's like maybe early on in screenwriting, or like my vision is my vision and don't f with it. Like I think that might take a minute. You know what I mean? Maybe you need better friends. Maybe you need better friends who are gonna like tell you when you're being unreasonable.
That's true. And my advice is like if you're gonna take it that personally, then at that point you should just get some people together and produce it yourself. At that point, like if it has to be this way, then just make it yourself. I say, and there's a million ways to get it out there now. So it's not like 20 years ago where YouTube was in its infancy and you had to just shoot a movie, put it out on DVD, and hope it gets sold in Walmart or whatever. It's like now so many different options.
And like distribution's like a true thing. I mean, I haven't worked hand in hand with any distributors on any of the projects that I've been in, but like I know of distribution and like the like the intricacies of it, and like what what can like gum up something, like what can gum up a production, or like halt things and make them not come out because of boxes that need to be ticked you know uh, instead of it going smoothly like you expected. So how long ago was it that I was a guest on your podcast?
Last year it was what was my Instagram live, not really, I mean, a
Oh,
podcast per se, but yeah, I was man, what did we talk about? I know we talked about wrestling. We talked a little bit about your about the Bruce project that you worked on,
yeah, yeah.
which was really cool. I remember talking to you about that. What's funny is Stephen Dodson, the director of that. I watched his film Crystal Lake on Tubi
Okay,
a few months ago.
okay.
I thought it was a really interesting take on the Friday the 13th mythology.
Mhm.
If
I did.
anybody has a chance to watch it, definitely check it out on Tubi. It's called Crystal Lake, and it's a very original take on the whole Friday the 13th
I I was in
universe.
on the beginning of the writing processes, so I was in on the pre-production. I was all part of that, but
Nice.
for reasons unmentioned, I'll say that I had to take a step away. But I think maybe you being on the inside of some of that will understand, probably without me even saying why.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked on many projects before where people just have the industry term is creative differences.
Mhm.
They have a different vision for where things are going to go, and when they can't come to like a middle ground, that's when somebody says that maybe this isn't the project for me.
Mhm. Yeah. Some of the talent was questionable for me, is my my take. But yeah, I I mean I've talked to so many people who have seen it and they liked it, and some like people talked about working on it, and they talked about like some of the production aspects of it, and they enjoyed themselves. But didn't.
Yeah.
I still haven't watched it, but it's on Tubi now. I know Steve was telling me about it. I mean, Steve and I don't know if you knew this, but I go back to like the mid '90s with Steve. Like
Oh,
we hung out when I was in middle school, and he was in high school, and like he was like the neighborhood punk in our neighborhood. Um, up until the summertime, we lived right across the street from each other. We've been close friends since we were kids.
nice.
So it's fun. Like in 2011 and in 2010, I moved back to the neighborhood, and we caught back up. We caught back up on Facebook, and then we just started sitting out front of his house, drinking beers and hanging out. And he told me about the script that he wrote, um, and I said, "Let's read it. Let's read it." And we read it, and I was like, "Let's shoot this." And so we shot it, and that was the first time Steve was like, "Wow, this is a reality." And then now he's like in it. Now he's like in the film business. Like he was just kind of like Steve Dotson, Steve Dotson from Langhorne, and now he's a filmmaker, and I'm very proud of the guy, and
It's awesome.
I've had him on my podcast now. He every time 100th episode hits, he's the guest. So he
Nice.
was on my 100th episode, my 200th episode, and my 300th episode. So when 400 comes around, he's on there. So
Nice.
what is your podcast called, and what's it about? Where can people find it?
So the one that I've been doing, we've been on a mini hiatus for a little while. You know, I don't have to tell you when it comes to getting people's schedules to line up. That's always the toughest part. But I do a podcast called the Uncaged Voice. So it's on YouTube. You could just type in the Uncaged Voice, and you can see a couple of our recent episodes that we did. It's myself, Donny Cage. It's top tier rated, who you can also follow on Twitch. He streams a lot of gaming videos on there. And then Jigsaw Jester is our third co-host.
Cool. And you said that's been 5 years now that you've been in that, or is that?
Well, I mean, just podcasting in general, because I've been like, done guest spots on podcasts a lot, and I started my podcast under a different name in like 2021 because Friday nights would roll around. I mean, it was the middle of COVID. I was like, I need something to do here. Can't really go out too much right now unless I want to wear a mask everywhere I go.
What a weird time, man. I think for sure, it changed the podcasting industry. Like it changed streaming, and it changed YouTube, and it changed like what people could do from their own homes. For sure, like leading up to it. So I'll give you my journey in that same exact way, because a very very similar start to the podcasting game for me. Like the first podcast I started was in 2012. It was myself, Matt Flowers, and Rick Connor. So my two best friends, the guys who are going to be my groomsmen in my wedding, right next to me. But they're and I was also groomsman in their weddings. But we had a comedy mix up podcast where we talked about pro wrestling, we talked about movies, and we talked about like stand up comedy, and we called that Pod Trash. And we did it for a couple months. We did it for a little while. We were doing it every week for a couple months. We would just go to Rick's house and record them, and then I think he moved or something changed, and we were just like, okay, well, I guess we got to take a step back from doing this. And then he started going to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, CSB. So when he started going to CSB, he started saying, hey, I kind of want to do a different podcast, but like more focus it on a thing. So he wanted to start a show called Wrestling Rock Radio, and he had Matt come on as his co-host, and I was just a guest all the time. I was just always on the show, and then it was a little difficult with the scheduling. It's also like it was a drive to Cherry Hill, New Jersey every time we wanted to record.
Yeah,
and then he wanted to move different studios. He was talking to these people at Wildfire Radio and at Toxic Radio, and this is all like way inside stuff. I don't really need to get, but we agreed on a name change and having me be in as the third guest or the third host, and just like our Pod Trash days. So then there was the three of us. That was the dynamic of the show, and when we would have different wrestlers on as guests, and we would talk about wrestling. We would talk about the newest wrestling news on TV, WWE at that time. Very very. We talked a lot. To give you a reference, it was a lot of the Lunatic Fringe. Was the guy's name? Dean Ambrose.
Yeah.
Wacky lunatic. Whoa, he stole an ambulance. Like that stuff. And if you're a wrestling fan and you follow, you know the timeline on that
D-
is pretty
Dean Ambrose, by the way, now goes by John Moxley in
right,
AEW.
right. Yes, but then then as as the as we were doing the show for a while, I was a guest on one of my friends' podcasts, and they had a studio in Fairless Hills that they were recording at, and I was like, "Yo, um, what does he charge you for studio time here?" And she was like, "Nothing, nothing." And I was like, "Ooh." And I was wanting to bring the guys and like the whole show. And she responded with, "Why do you want to start your own show?" And I was like, deep down, yeah, like that's something I've always wanted. And at the time, because we had that hour time limit, that hour of like we had to talk about wrestling, we had to talk about all the stuff, we had to fit it in. But I was listening to all these podcasts that were inspiring me to want to have a conversation based show where it's like if I was listening to this, I want to hear this. This is the kind of conversations I'd want to have. And like I think like there was so narrow casted with the wrestling just to talk about the
Yeah,
wrestling.
yeah, with the topics.
So and then with that 1 hour time limit, we'd have to wrap, and then there'd be so much at the end of it. I was like, oh man, I meant to talk about this. I meant to talk about that. I meant to ask this question. I meant to ask that question. And opinions on that and this. So um, I was like, yeah, I'll start. I could get into starting my own thing. And she's like, what do you have in mind? And then I automatically told her like exactly what I wanted it to be. And she sent it right to the guy who was running the thing. And he was like, yeah, we have an opening on Mondays, like Monday nights. You can have the whole night and do whatever you want. So I started doing this show from a studio, um, live every Monday, probably in 2017 is when I started doing that. And I was doing this and that at the same time. And then we were getting the studio that we were using for the wrestling podcast was screwing us around in a weird way. And they were like, oh, we've got to move. Oh, wait, no, never mind. We're not moving. Oh, look, we moved. Oh, well, never mind. Oh, you know what? Come help us move. Come help us move. And we were like, this is all just too much mess. So we started recording just audio. We had microphones. We were setting them up at my apartment, my where my previous residence, and we're then the pandemic hit. Like right as we were like, oh, we're just going to record them from my house, and then the pandemic hit, and then
Like
everything
ixnay on recording from anybody's house.
everything has to be from everybody's house. So we just started
Yeah.
recording them from each other, from home, just like this. And then uh, the the ability to like look at each other and have like the video aspect of the shows changed, and that changed so many podcasts. That changed so many um, uh, creators, I guess. And I think maybe the pandemic had a lot of people start something, but they didn't follow through. Like I think a lot of times when people talk about like, oh, I'd start a podcast, but there's a zillion podcasts out there, and uh, so like, what difference would my voice make? And it's like, it's, what are you just results driven? You're not like if that's where the drum comes back in. Stay consistent with it. You know what I mean? Like I think I think lots of people started up podcasts and stopped them when they didn't get immediate results. Like they thought they were going to be Joe Rogan right on episode one, and that's not going to be the case all the time.
One can only hope.
Right, right. So, uh, you know, just a fickle spirit of you to give up that quickly, and you know, I'm I think I plan. I'm gonna say this. I don't want to overplay my hand here in saying this, but I I hope to do this. I want to do this for the rest of my life, because what I can do is I can track where I was in my life through episodes. Like I can go back time capsules on who I was and where I was and track the actual evolving of Cory Kastle. Like the thought processes that I used to have versus who I am now. That's why I originally called it evolving with Cory Kastle, because it's not just because I'm the host, not just because of that, it's because track me becoming the man that I'm becoming. Like from you can at this point there's audio evidence of the version of me from when I was 33 years old to now I'm 41 years old. So there's all that time where you can kind of like get a feeling, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna sincerely uh, be who I am, and you know, I originally I think when I wanted to do the podcast, I think I maybe even said it in the first or second episode. I was like, I wanted to write a book. That was all I wanted to. I just wanted to have like a book out there. But then I was like, but like my opinions change on things. Like, what if I say something that offends somebody, and like, and I'm like, and they come to me and they're like, "Hey, I read this book you wrote 10 years ago, and I'm offended." I'm like, "I'm offended too. I don't agree with that anymore. That's somebody else who wrote that book." So like this, I felt like I was like, well, this is the new. This is the new literature. Is audio is the replacement for literature. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's the thing. And that's the thing, like you said, people evolve over time. Like life
right.
lessons will teach you new things. You have knowledge now that you didn't have so many years ago. So the person that's podcasting today is going to be different than the person that was podcasting 4 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Uh, So, do you have a specific, and this, feel free to tell me that you don't want to talk about this, or feel free to be like, yeah, let's carefully navigate this. Everybody who's in the entertainment business has a look at me hole caused by some sort of damage. What would you say your damage is that made that hole exist in the first place, if there is one?
That's actually a really good question. I would say for me, growing up, first off, I've always had an awesome, amazing family and everything that's supported me and everything I've done in my life. So that's something I'm thankful for every day. But growing up, I was always kind of like, the book smart kid, salutatorian of his high school class. I get to college, I start making new friends and sharing different experiences there. Then I get out into the working world, and a part of me is like, wow, people kind of suck in the working world. Um, so, it really took me a lot of years to find my footing and to have like some sort of clear path of what I wanted to do. I had like a general idea. I said, well, I want to work in this industry, kind of like what I said earlier, but I didn't know what my path was going to look like. And, some people just wake up one day and decide, hey, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be an accountant or whatever. And it's a lot more straight and narrow path. You get your bachelor's degree, your master's, your doctorate, or whatever else you need, and you kind of work for the rest of your life. And maybe you might be out of work at different points, but there's always going to be a need for you. Same thing with people who take up a trade,
Right.
electricians and people who do gas and carpeting and all that other stuff. Um,
Mhm.
in our industry in media, whether you're a filmmaker, a podcaster, a guy that works in radio, whatever the case is, there's a lot of uncertainty because the industry evolves and the mediums change. And also, what's popular today might not have been popular 10 years ago. There was a point in time where, in order to be successful, you had to be a mid 20s to mid 40s white male dressed in a suit and everything. And I think we all can agree that the landscape has changed considerably. That's not, I mean, yeah, there are still mid 20s to mid 40s white males who are super successful, but there's a lot of women that are successful now. There's a lot of minorities who are successful now, which is the way it should be. The industry
Mhm.
shouldn't stay the same, but
Yeah.
it's a changing landscape, and
Mhm.
you have to
Ever evolving.
understand the way the landscape has changed, and you also have to understand what's going to make you stand out from your competition. So that's been the biggest challenge for me. And along the way, there have been a lot of hurdles, and it is hard to take criticism sometimes. I've been there. I've gotten a little bit better at it, but I still struggle with it sometimes. And that's
Mhm.
perhaps my biggest note to everyone is you have to learn the difference between someone giving you constructive criticism and someone actually breaking you down on a personal level.
Um, do do you when you do? Oh shoot, my shoot, hang with me. Sorry, I was having a little technical problem. When you decided you want to be an actor, right? In the acting, when you saw the type of roles you could play, did you see yourself more as like a leading man or like a supporting character?
I think everybody deep down wants to be the leading man. They want to be front and center. They want to command the screen. And I
Mm.
still love to do that when the opportunity presents itself. But somebody comes to me and says, "I've got you in mind for this role." And number one, if it's people I like working with, most of the time I'm going to say yes,
Yeah,
unless I
fun sets.
legitimately, yeah,
Fun sets, like that's like my favorite part. Like whenever I'm talking to anybody about like pre-production, I'm talking about working on a thing or any set. I'm like, just as long as it's fun. Like anytime we're doing a film or a TV show or anything, the set's got to be fun. Like there's got to be some like collaborative, like good time for me to want to be there because the days are long as hell, and you want to be around people who've got smiles on their face, not people who are just buried in their phone or
yeah.
like kind of complaining about this or that or whatever. It's like, did you ever see The Disaster Artist? Did you see that movie?
I've seen parts of it, and I know the story behind the disaster
Uh,
artist with everybody working with Tommy Wiseau, who did The Room. It was
right.
that was when I think about that experience, I'm like, people are going to be able, as tough as that must have been to endure while it was happening. Just think about this: you're going to be able to tell stories about that experience for the rest of your life.
Right.
The one guy wrote a book about it, and then that was the inspiration for the movie.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It was such a good movie. I've watched it many times.
Yeah,
And I'm sure I'll watch it way more times. Uh, it's like it's really funny because like his idea of like the acting class, and then him seeing himself as like not like when the acting coach was like, oh, you're Dracula, like you're that character, you're trying
yeah,
to be this character and you're that character. And I was just trying to like the mystery of the like psychology, the stuff going on inside that person's mind was what motivated me to sort of ask you that type of question. And also like was also thinking about the lady when I'm talking about fun on set, and the lady was like, yeah, the worst day on set, at least I'm on set. I'm not, it was like rather be here on set than at any job.
yeah.
It's man, challenge. Let's watch that movie and we'll talk about it again.
Disaster artist.
So, what was your family dynamic at home? You have both parents, siblings. How's that go?
Both parents, only child growing up.
Only
So,
child.
I was like
The
I
leading
said,
man, for sure. Got to
I
have
was
that
the
leading.
I was the goody two shoes in school. I was,
Mhm.
sometimes I was bullied. I'm not the bullying I went through is nothing like what some kids go through. So I don't want to
Like
like
you're
make
so
everybody
smart
feel
and
sorry
so
for
you're
myself.
so smart and so sharp. Like you seem unbullyable. Like you'd be too smart to be victim to the bulliness. Like,
I was gullible as a kid, and I took everything to heart and everything. And you know what it was is people knew they could piss me off if I was the guy who they tried to piss off, but they knew they couldn't. Then it would be a totally different story. Totally different story. But the crazy thing is, like, that was only really from like elementary school and middle school. Like when I got into high school, I didn't really give a shit about what people thought of me at that point. I just was doing my thing, and that was kind of it. And college was just kind of like you hang with your crowd, other people hang with their crowd, and we're over the whole like oh, we've got to bully other, I mean, maybe some people aren't, but we're over the whole like I've got to bully somebody else to make myself feel better about myself.
do you do you do you agree that some bullying should sort of exist? Like, some people need to be bullied a little bit. Um, maybe that, like without bullies, people lose the idea of humility. Like like I there's like a nature in like spending any time with like a group of kids. One of them's gonna wind up exposing themselves as being the bully of that group,
Yeah,
and it's not. It's just like it's like in the DNA. And
yeah,
like we try to overcorrect and snuff out all that bullying. It's like these are maybe patterns that need to take place. Like, because most of the time when I talk to people and they've been bullied in life, aka myself too, um, the the bullying probably helped. I mean, I, I mean it kind of shaped me, and I'm not somebody who like sits around and has like regrets for anything, but I really just go like, well, everything that happened to me to make me who I am. So I changed that all happening for me. I'd say that bullying happened for me. That I mean, for sure. I I wouldn't have. I probably the worst part of my childhood was like the bullying I had because I couldn't see. I had really bad eyesight, and I had to wear glasses, and I'd always break them. They were always broken or lost or whatever, and so people would go, and people would squint at me, and just that. Not that. That's not it. But I'm saying that was one of the main things.
yeah.
Was I mean, I bet you I was bullied way more than I knew because I could only see this far in front of my face, you know. But
For some people, it is a motivating factor. I mean, you talk about yourself. You know how you've been in the wrestling business for over 20 years, and I think I just saw a video the other day where they asked. It was an old interview that Howard Stern did with John Cena, and John Cena basically said the reason he started working out when he was like 12 years old is because he was bullied all the time. And I'm like, wow, John Cena was like the, you look at him today and you're like, John Cena was bullied. Like what? That's like
right.
people tell me The Rock or somebody was bullied, and I'm like, he might have been bullied as a kid
Did you
for
watch
all we
Young
know.
Rock? Did you
You
watch
know,
that?
I haven't watched Young Rock. I keep convincing myself I'm gonna watch it one of these days.
I swore I was going to watch it. I know my mom and my sister watched it, and they've commented on it to me, and they're like, it's really cool that like they're using all the insider words that we've heard you use all these years, like gimmick, heel, face, kayfabe, like all that stuff. They use that in the show, which of course they're going to use those those words, but it's a that's not a motivator enough for me to watch a show that's actors playing wrestlers and talking in our lingo. Uh,
Yeah, and it's one of those things also when you're familiar with like the real life wrestlers. I mean, this is any professional athlete for that matter. When you have an actor stepping into the role and they look nothing like the real person, it's like as much as I try to just focus on the performance, I can't because I grew up with this stuff. I know how they act and what they look like. And despite this person's attempts, I just can't forget about the real life figure.
have you always been a wrestling fan?
Since I was about six, probably.
What was like your like favorite era?
I grew up during the early days, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Randy Savage, all then. Watched a little bit of early WCW, so I was
Okay.
exposed to Sting and Ric Flair and all them. And then I watched it all the way through the Attitude Era and then the early 2000s. I still watch it to this day and enjoy it. I'm not as like invested in it anymore as I used to be. Um, just because it's kind of like I've got so much going on in my life now that it's like, and because I know the whole thing is scripted, I'm kind of like it's hard to get emotionally invested now.
Mm-hmm.
As a 38-year-old adult, but I still appreciate like the fact that these guys are, and people who say wrestlers are not real athletes don't know what they're talking about. They are real athletes. I just want to say that.
I kind
I
of
know
think
that,
that I respond to those people when they say wrestling isn't real. Like, oh, you aren't real. Like, you can't understand it. It's you that's the one that's not real.
yeah, yeah. I could sit here and tell you, and most people won't dispute me, but I could tell every single person that watches this that the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight was completely staged, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't think there's a single person that will dispute that because I watched it from start to finish, and I'm like, this fight should have been over in
These
2 minutes, and
these
it
like
went.
weak
Yeah.
miss on purpose punches. Uh, we wrestlers don't do that.
Do you see the chops that these guys take? Like I can hear this guy getting chopped.
Right, and there's marks and blood and like you can't fake that.
No.
Everything hurts. Like sure, it is a collaborative effort, but that's part of the art. That's what filmmaking is. That's what television is. That's like
Exactly.
it's funny. I remember when I first was getting into wrestling. I I I started training when I was a teenager, so I was still in school, middle school into high school, and I remember my friends being like, "I couldn't do that. I couldn't lose on purpose," and I was like, It's not like that. It's not like that. It's like to me, it's like a movie. It's like a TV show. It's like some the good guy can't win every time and the bad guy can't lose every time. Like it's like let go of me personally winning or me personally losing and kinda dissect it from what do you really want to be? If you want to be a part of this, if that's somebody you really want to be, if you want to be a pro wrestler, the letting that part go, it's not you, it's not your ego. Put it down. Like it's everybody. If everybody knows that it's not really you losing because you lost, everybody knows that it's a work. Everybody know like not everybody, everybody in the whole world knows. I mean, I'm sure there's some people who are still convinced that it's all the way like a full on combat by which that's not all the way inaccurate because for sure like you can't you can't fake all those punches like you can't like I'm still I mean I have this jaw pain that won't go away that from all the years of these fake punches to my face they're not you get punched in your face that's part of it that's just a part of it that you accept the sacrifices that you make for the things you want to be the same the same way I would buy the same way I buy a pencil case before I start a school year. It's the same exact thing. So I would like to ask you, which, like, going back to me, this is along the same thread of me talking to you about. I get to go back and listen to this, and it's a time capsule on where I was or what I was doing or the conversations that I had or like the most I got to know somebody. I like to then say things on the record because I've had some guests on here, some close friends that I got to say something on the record with, and then like maybe they're not with us anymore. So I get to listen to those back, and it's really, it's meaningful and important. What I want to say to you on the record right now is I want to say how grateful I am for your time, your effort, your attention, that you hang out with me. This is the longest conversation you and I have ever had, and I look forward to being a resource for you in some way, in any way, if I can. If you just need a friend, if you need judgment-free conversation, reach out to me any day, anytime. I'm here.
That extends to me as well, Cory, because this has been a great conversation, and I'm an open book. When anyone needs to talk to a friend in need, I'm here. You just need somebody to listen, because we all go through trials and tribulations in life and work, and
Judgment
you know,
free. Judgment.
yeah, and it's like a lot of people keep it bottled up, and then they just blow up one day and take it out on everybody. And I'm like, no, man, just you know, talk to people. Tell them what you're feeling.
Cool. Uh, well, me saying that, I will now want to say I'm gonna throw back onto you and
Okay.
say, is there any questions you'd like to ask me, like on the record? Anything that you'd like to say to me? Any kind of uh, things that you think, like if you go back and listen to this, there's like maybe one day I'm not around anymore, and you want to go back and listen to their conversation with me. Things you can't go. Oh man, I regret that I didn't say that. Any thoughts go in your head of stuff to say or ask me?
I think this is going to be my question. For people who are thinking about becoming podcasters themselves, what's the piece of advice that you would give them? They're starting out. They want to try to. I don't want to say make a mark, but they want to do. They've got a good idea, and they want to try, and they just want to get it out to to people to watch and enjoy. Like, how do they get started? It's like, is it as simple as just setting up a camera and you just start talking about anything? Or
I don't. I mean, that's very it's very like assorted. You know what I mean? There's so much different ways you can go in answering that. Because like for sure I could like act like I've got advice or I'm some guru on the whole thing, which I'm really not. I just stay consistent and stay true. Like I think like there is value in every kind of podcast. There is a lid to every jar. There is ears who want to hear what you've got to say. You've got a perspective that nobody else in the world has. Nobody else is you. Nobody sees the world through your eyes. Nobody's got your voice. Nobody's got your ears and has heard all the things you've heard and seen all the things you've seen. So like think of the fun and the value that you could add into somebody else's life with however you're getting that message out there. Like it means more to hear the audio of it or see the expression on your face than it does to read it off of your thumbs that you typed out. Like that's I kind of stay inactive on social media. Like if you go through my Facebook page, most of what I'm sharing is me doing this. It's not me like sharing my opinions on stuff. I don't do a whole lot of that because opinions change. My Facebook memories come up and I see stuff that I wrote like 10 years ago and I'm like, oh, this guy, I don't know. It's a good thing I don't write stuff every day anymore. You know what
and
I'm saying?
actually, something popped into my head as you were talking about that, because you mentioned not being super active on Facebook. You probably have read, and this is it's a little controversial topic, but you probably read that now Facebook is getting rid of the independent fact checking that's been on the platform the last couple of
Right.
years.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a general opinion about that? Whether it's like it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, and Facebook's going to now turn into like the wild, wild west of social media?
I think there shouldn't have been fact checking on anything the whole time. Like it's good. It's good that it's gone. Like
Yeah.
if they're doing away with it, I didn't even know it was there, and I don't think most people knew it was even there. And that means that like structuring your own personal reality, because some people use Facebook as their as my aunt Deb would say, their 6, 8, and 10, like their news source for everything. You
Yeah.
know, so I think I agree. I think it's fine. I mean, a lot of it is bought and paid for by corporations, and things are sold to you in uh, strategic strategic in the ways that the sponsorship, like, well, if they're doing away with the fact check, I think that's I don't know. Do you share the same opinion with me, or?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, I'm of the opinion that, fact checking, it's kind of just been a thing the last couple of years. And I really feel like you're saying it's more motivated by like whoever the corporate sponsors of Facebook are and whatever their beliefs are. But at the same time, I do believe, because we also got that thing with TikTok that might be going away in a month or so, and unless it gets purchased. And I'm kind of like, well, where does that end though? Because it's kind of like, I understand some people are worried about what people post on social media, but that to me is where like parents need to step in and be like, okay, maybe my 8-year-old doesn't need a Facebook or a TikTok account. Like, let's wait until they're like 14 before we let them have a social media account.
Well, it used
So
when it first started, it said you had to be 18. That was the cut. Like I remember, I was when the internet, when social media started, I was already out of high school. I was already 18. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm the like Facebook start when I first saw Facebook, it was only for college students. You had to be in college to have a Facebook page. Like, you had to have a .edu email address. So you had to be in college to get on Facebook. That was like I don't even remember what year that was. 2006 maybe, when I first started seeing Facebook.
I
But
think
like
it was even
my
earlier than that. It might have been like 04, 05, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't in college, but I had lots of friends in college, and I spent a lot of time hanging out in college. And I saw that they had Facebooks and stuff, and I had no idea. I just assumed it was something they shared like study stuff with. I thought it was about like it was mostly like you communicate with people who are in your same classes or in your same schools and stuff. I and then it was like, oh, it's just like MySpace, except for like now everybody's going over to this from
Yeah.
MySpace. So I mean, MySpace was, I don't know, maybe that should come back. Maybe MySpace should come back. Hey, algorithms, if you're listening, somebody advertise MySpace. That's so
I
corny.
literally just had that conversation with somebody a week ago, and I was saying, "Is MySpace even around still?" And
I
somebody
think it's
said,
still
"Believe it or not, I think it is."
it still exists. It still exists. Hey, this episode brought to you by MySpace. I'll take some of that MySpace money. Like, they still got it. If they still exist, they must still be making some money. Remember putting like personalizing your MySpace page? That was fun. Like, I discovered a lot of cool music on MySpace. I, that's what I remember. Like, that was probably right in my emo phase. I was like, listening to lots of emo music back then. And I remember like friends being like, "Oh, I heard that song on your channel or on your profile, and I downloaded it right away, and that's a great song." Like, so like it was a cool platform for like sharing music, not just like what your thoughts on stuff were, or not just what video you saw and liked and shared.
Yeah.
But with that being said, everybody watching this, uh, like and share and subscribe and do all those things that are call to actions, because like I always say, and I even repeated these words to you uh, earlier, the currency of your time, effort, and attention are so valuable to me. It's ridiculous how like ridiculously we waste that currency on stuff that doesn't have value to us. So the fact that anybody's spent any of that currency, that time, that effort, that love on me or anything I'm doing or hearing my voice, like if you find it valuable to you in any way, interact with me. Help me grow, help me evolve, help the evolving of Cory Castle and Donny too. All of us. Let's be collaborative creators.
Into that.
Um, so just a few more quick things, and then I'll send you off into the sunset with a hot dog and a handshake. Uh, so the all right. So I do this segment that I call audio time travel. Okay. So let's say 20 years into the future, somebody stumbles across this recording. So this video, they hear just maybe the audio. However, they stumble across it, they're stumbling across it and they're finding it because they've seeked out their their dearest Donny. They want they love you. Like it's your parents or it's your kids, your wife, whoever is stumbling across this is stumbling across it in 2045. They're going to be coming across this recording. The next words out of your mouth are going directly to their ears. What are you saying?
Hope you enjoy it.
All right, that's it.
Uh, I hope you enjoy it and still think I'm just as cool of a guy as I was in 2024.
Well, it's 2025 now, buddy.
2025.
It's
See, I'm
new.
already in past tense.
Happy New Year. do, do you have any resolutions for the new year?
I did actually. I always try to make resolutions. My resolutions don't change a whole lot year to year, just because I'm kind of like, well, these are things I still want to focus on. I always say, like, even though a lot of my life is spent online, whether it's through work or whatever, that I'm going to try to spend more of like my off time, like less time online and more like present with my friends and family. Um, I am a church goer, so I always try to go to church on a weekly basis. I try to get my workout in 3 to 4 times a week. I try to spend more time when I am online doing stuff like this, podcasts and filmmaking related stuff.
Mhm.
And I convinced myself I'm going to cook and read more this year. So we'll see how I do that, and travel. I said I'm going to travel a little bit more this year. So I think most of that stuff is attainable. So we'll
Mhm.
see. We'll see how I'm doing in the next 3 or 4 months.
Nice, nice. Do you have this isn't a normal evolving question. I don't normally ask this, but is there like somebody who you see on their journey that inspires you? That like you see them the like let's say it's a famous person or let's say it's not even a famous person. You just see them and you're like that person. I could do what they do. I could be what they are. I could make the impact that they're making. Uh, do you have anybody in your mind or like anybody that anybody compares you to ever?
Well, again, a lot of I have a couple of friends who are actually cancer survivors, and one first of all was a childhood cancer survivor, and then also had it again a few years ago. It wasn't the same type of cancer; it was just this freak thing that came along, and he got through both of it and has been able to persevere. So that's my buddy Andre, who I do a lot of my film stuff with Boathouse Pictures. So the fact that he is still pursuing his dream despite all this adversity, and also has to go home and be a husband and a dad at the same time, big inspiration, 100%. And then my other friend, who I mentioned, my friend Allie, is a breast cancer survivor. She had it back in 2018, got surgery. She's been she's been kicking ass in life and her career ever since. So that's definitely an inspiration too.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm
Yeah,
I'm
man.
a I think I'm gonna make that a regular. Start wrapping it up. Start wrapping it up. One of the when I say a few more things, then I'll send it off. I think I'm gonna make that a regular one. That one warmed my heart a bit. Thanks for shouting out your friends like that. That was really cool.
Yeah, no problem.
Uh, do you do uh, any impressions at all?
I'm glad you asked because actually I do. I gotta get myself I gotta get myself in the right mode here for a second. People ask me all the time if I do impressions, and I mean, I try to do impressions, but they're just no good. They're not good. They're not good. I just it's a disaster when I try to do impressions all the time.
Okay, two more quick things, and then we're for real wrapping it up. Uh, okay, hypothetically, I've gifted you this show. This is your first episode, the pilot episode of your new podcast, Evolving with Donny Cage, in a very Jerry Springer final thought type of way. The most valuable takeaways that can inspire somebody to be a better version of themselves. What are you giving those people?
Ooh, I'm telling them first of all, never expect life to be perfect because you're going to face adversity in every single area of your life, and it's going to be probably when you don't want the adversity to even strike. But I'm also going to say that that adversity is going to make you stronger, whether you believe it today or not, and it's going to inspire you to keep going. And the only alternative to that is if you just give up, and by giving up, you're actually going to be even more miserable than the stuff that has proven to be an adversity to you in the first place. So it's either tackle the challenge and feel better that you got through it, or just give in to the challenge and ultimately not have the life that you want.
The way we wrap up every show is I say the closing phrase, which is be fun, have safe, keep evolving. Uh, in your President Trump impression, uh, can you say that catchphrase and take us home?
Be be safe, have fun, keep evolving.
Love it. Grateful for you. Grateful for your time. Much love, much respect, light and love. Everybody, if this is like I said earlier, if this is your first time checking out the show, uh, prove to me that you exist. If you've enjoyed any of this, if this has brought any value, subscribe, share, comment, like all those things. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to everybody. Everybody's got their own journey. Everybody's got their own story. Practice some empathy. Be fun. Have safe. Keep evolving. Where's my mouse?